In his essay Technique as Discovery, Mark Schorer argues that the way a writer tells a story, what we call technique, is not just a tool for decoration or organizing ideas. Technique is central to the meaning of a story. It is how a writer explores, discovers, and communicates meaning. Schorer believes that in literature, beauty and truth are not separate things. They are the same when we understand beauty as form or technique and truth as content or subject matter. A work of art only becomes art when the writer gives it form. Without technique, what we have is just raw experience, not art. Schorer points out that modern critics already understand this when it comes to poetry. But fiction has not been treated the same way. People often think that the value of a novel lies mostly in its content, the story, the characters, the events, and that technique is just something extra, like decoration or packaging. For example, people talk about plot, structure, dramatic suspense, or how characters are developed, as if those are the only parts of technique that matter. They rarely talk about how the language itself adds meaning, or how the point of view defines what the story is really about. Many still believe that the content of a novel first and technique comes afterward to organize it. Schorer says this is wrong. Technique helps the writer discover the values and meanings in their material. In fact, without technique, there is no story, only a pile of experience. To show this, Schorer compares several. He looks at older works like Moll Flanders by Daniel Defoe and Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, and newer ones like Tono Bungay by H.G. Wells, Sons and Lovers by D.H. Lawrence, and A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. Defoe claimed that Moll Flanders was not fiction but the edited memoir of a real woman. However, this claim is part of the technique. By pretending the story is true, he gives the book a certain style and structure. It also explains why the novel has little reflection and mostly describes actions. This creates a flat but fast-paced story. Schorer suggests that Defoe was not aware of his own technique, and the book's lack of emotional depth is due to this. Emily Bronte's Wuthering Heights, on the other hand, uses a more complex structure. The story is told through a series of narrators who report on events they did not always witness. This technique creates distance and confusion, but also mystery. It reflects the novel's theme of passion and violence in a world that does not understand it. Schorer says that although Bronte's method is clumsy at times, her use of technique adds depth to the story. In the 20th century, novelists became more aware of technique. H.G. Wells said he avoided technique, but his book Tono Bungay contradicts this. The story is told by a narrator who looks back at his life, but the language is sometimes unclear and the tone is inconsistent. To be personal but also critical of society. These conflicting aims weaken the effect. Schorer says that Wells' failure to fully use point of view and language as tools of meaning makes the novel less successful. D.H. Lawrence's Sons and Lovers is more thoughtful about technique. The book is and personal, and it uses language that captures the feeling of the moment. But Lawrence believed that his subject matter, the real experiences of his own life, was sacred and could not be changed. This made him resist editing or changing the structure of the book. As a result, the novel has powerful parts but also long, dull sections. Schorer argues that Lawrence's technique did not fully support the theme because he confused raw experience with art. James Joyce's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man shows a deep understanding of technique. The novel tells us the story of Stephen Dedalus from childhood to young adulthood. Joyce changes the language of Stephen as he grows up. When Stephen is a child, the words are simple and childish. As he becomes more aware of the world, the language becomes more complex and philosophical. This change in style is not just for show. It mirrors the character's growth and shows how he sees the world. Joyce also uses point of view in a special way. The story is told in the third person but closely follows Stephen's thoughts. This allows readers to understand Stephen's inner world while also seeing it from the outside. Schorer says this is a perfect example of how technique becomes discovery. Joyce's form reveals the meaning. Schorer concludes that technique is more than just a way to arrange content. It is the only way a writer can find out what their story means. Even when writers don't realize it, they are using technique. Some techniques are better than others at discovering meaning. Good writers are those who explore their subject deeply and create forms that reveal it. Bad technique leads to shallow stories. Critics should not focus only on what a story is about, but how it is told. Only then can we understand its true